Editorial note and preface of The Joyful Wisdom. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Tim Shearman Chase. The Joyful Wisdom by Friedrich Nietzsche. Translated by Thomas Common. I stay to mine own house confined, nor graft my wits on alien stock, and mock at every master mind that never at itself could mock. Editorial note by Oscar Levy. The Joyful Wisdom, written in 1882, just before Zarathustra, is rightly judged to be one of Nietzsche's best books. Here the essentially grave and masculine face of the poet-philosopher is seen to light up and suddenly break into a delightful smile. The warmth and kindness that beams from his features will astonish those hasty psychologists who have never divined that behind the destroyer is the creator, and behind the blasphemer the lover of life. In the retrospective evaluation of his work, which appears in Ecce Homo, the author himself observes with truth that the fourth book, Sanctus Januarius, deserves especial attention. Quote, "The whole book is a gift from the saint, and the introductory verse expresses my gratitude for the most wonderful month of January that I have ever spent." End quote. Book Fifth, We Fearless Ones, and the appendix, Songs of Prince Free as a Bird, and the preface were added to the second edition in 1887. The translation of Nietzsche's poetry has proved to be a more embarrassing problem than that of his prose. Not only has there been a difficulty in finding adequate translators, a difficulty overcome, it is hoped, by the choice of Miss Peter and Mr. Cohen, but it cannot be denied that even in the original poems are of unequal merit. By the side of such masterpieces as To the Minstrel are several verses of comparatively little value. The editor, however, did not feel justified in making a selection, as it was intended that the edition should be complete. The heading Jest, Ruse and Revenge of the Prelude in Rhyme is borrowed from Goethe. End of editorial note. Preface to the second edition. 1. Perhaps more than one preface would be necessary for this book, and after all it might still be doubtful whether anyone could be brought nearer to the experiences in it by means of prefaces without having himself experienced something similar. It seems to have been written in the language of the thawing wind. There is wantonness, restlessness, contradiction and April weather in it, so that one is constantly reminded of the proximity of winter as of the victory over it. The victory which is coming, which must come, which has perhaps already come. Gratitude continually flows forth, as if the most unexpected thing has happened, the gratitude of a convalescent, for convalescence was this most unexpected thing. Joyful wisdom, that implies the saturnalia of a spirit which has patiently withstood a long, frightful pressure, patiently, strenuously, impassionately, without submitting but without hope, and which is now suddenly o'erpowered with hope, the hope of the health, the intoxication of convalescence. What wonder that much that is unreasonable and foolish thereby comes to light, much wanton tenderness expended even on problems which have a prickly hind, and are not therefore fit to be fondled and allured. The whole book is really nothing but a revel after long privation and impotence. the frolicking of returning energy, of newly awakened belief in a tomorrow and after tomorrow, of sudden sentience and prescience of a future, of near adventures, of seas open once more, and aims once more permitted and believed in. And what is now all behind me? This track of desert, exhaustion, unbelief, and frigidity in the midst of youth, this advent of grey hairs at the wrong time, this tyranny of pain, surpassed, however, by the tyranny of pride which repudiated the consequences of pain. And consequences are comforts, this radical isolation, as defence against the contempt of mankind, become morbidly clairvoyant, this restriction upon principle to all that is bitter, sharp, and painful in knowledge, as prescribed by the disgust which has gradually resulted from impudent spiritual diet and pampering. It is called romanticism. Oh, who could realise all those feelings of mine? He, however, who could do so would certainly forgive me everything, and more than a little folly, boisterousness, and joyful wisdom. For example, the handful of songs which are given along with the book on this occasion, songs in which a poet makes merry over all poets in a way not easily pardoned. Alas, it is not only on the poets and their fine "lyrical sentiments" that this reconvalescence must vent his malignity. Who knows what kind of victim he seeks, what kind of monster of material for parody will allure him ere long? Insipid tragedia. It is said, at the conclusion of this seriously frivolous book, let people be on their guard. Something or other extraordinarily bad and wicked announces itself. Insipid parodia. There is no doubt. 2. But let us leave Herr Nietzsche. What does it matter to people that Herr Nietzsche has got well again? A psychologist knows few questions so attractive as those concerning the relations of health to philosophy, and in the case when he himself falls sick, he carries with him all his scientific curiosity into his sickness. For, granted that one is a person, one has necessarily also the philosophy of one's personality. There is, however, an important distinction here. With the one, it is his defects which philosophize, with the other it is his riches and powers. The former requires his philosophy, whether it be as support, sedative, or medicine, as salvation, elevation, or self-alienation. With the latter it is merely a fine luxury, at best the voluptuousness of a triumphant gratitude, which must inscribe itself ultimately in cosmic capitals on the heaven of ideas. In the other more usual case, however, when states of distress occupy themselves with philosophy, as is the case with all sickly thinkers, and perhaps the sickly thinkers preponderate in the history of philosophy, what will happen to the thought itself which is brought under the pressure of sickness? This is the important question for psychologists, and here experiment is possible. We philosophers do just like a traveller who resolves to awake at a given hour, and then quietly yields himself to sleep. We surrender ourselves temporarily, body and soul, to the sickness. Supposing we become ill, we shut, as it were, our eyes on ourselves. And, as the traveller knows that something does not sleep, that something counts the hours and will wake him, we also know that the critical moment will find us awake, that when something will spring forward and surprise the spirit in the very act, I mean in weakness, or reversion, or submission, or obduracy, or obscurity, or whatever the morbid conditions are called, which in times of good health have the pride of the spirit opposed to them.